yesterday we started this lecture, and we covered the first paragraph, right?
Yes.
Okay, so here he started with saying that he made a certain study that he compares the attitude and the way of thinking of animals and the attitude and the way of thinking of human beings. And he said that the result was so humiliating for him. Then here he says something that shows that it is a satire. In what way? That he says that I have to reject the theory of Darwin that says that the ascent of man from the lower animals. And he says that I have concluded a new one, which is what? The descent of man from higher animals. So would you please pay attention to this part? I say it again. Here in this paragraph, what is the trait or what shows us that it is a satire? Can you write it down, Tayyip? Guys, can you write it down?
نكتب إيه يا ميس؟
Okay. In the first paragraph, how do we expect that this is a satire? This is the question. The answer is that Twain claims that Darwin's theory of the ascent of man from the lower animals should be replaced by a new theory, which is the descent of man from the higher animals. Do you get it? The last 3 lines here in the first paragraph. That he rejects a certain theory and he comes to a new theory, which is totally the opposite. This is the satire here. Guys, do you get it?
Yes, yeah, miss.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
we will continue. We will continue with reading the second paragraph to see what he is going to develop his essay. So, Jana Said. Okay. Would you read the second paragraph, please?
In proceeding toward this unpleasant conclusion, I have not guessed or speculated or conjectured, but have used what is commonly called the scientific method. That is to say, I have subjected every postulate that presented itself to the circular test of actual experiment, and have adopted it or rejected it according to the result. Thus I verified and established each step of my course in its turn before advancing to the next. These experiments were made in the London Zoological Garden and covered many months of painstaking and fatiguing work.
Okay. So in order to make it for us to look as if it is a serious thing, he says that he has concluded this theory according to scientific method. So the use of the word scientific method here shows that it is something serious. He says that I did not predict. He says I did not guess. I didn't speculate. But what I did, scientific method. So he reached his conclusions through using scientific method. Then he says that I conducted my experiments in a place. What is that place? London Zoological Gardens. By the way, it was established in 1826 and it was mainly established for scientific theories and experiments. So this is the place in which he conducted his experiments. And he says that it covered many months, that it took from him many months to conduct his experiments of painstaking and fatiguing work, that he worked very hard to reach his conclusions. This paragraph is clear for everyone? Guys, is that paragraph clear for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, continue, my dear.
Anonymous?
Yes.
Before
Particularizing any of the experiments?
I wish to state one or two things, which seem to more probably belong in this place than further along. This in the interest of clearness. The math experiments established to my satisfaction certain generalizations to it. One, that human race
Just
is
hold
one.
on here. Hold on here. So he says that in order to conduct his experiments, he divided all the species on Earth into three groups. And we shall see what are these three groups. Thank you, Jana. Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, would you read starting from number 1?
Okay. That the human race is one of the distinct species. It exhibits slight variations in color, stature, mental caliber, and so on, due to climate, environment, and so forth. But it is a species by itself and not to be co-founded with any other.
Okay.
Complete?
So the first group
that the
quadrupeds اللي هي moving on 4 legs. Yes, my dear.
Are a distinct family also. This family exhibits variations in color, size, food preferences, and so on, but it is a family by itself. That the other families, the birds, the fishes, the insects, and the reptiles, etc., are more or less distinct also. They are in the procession. They are links in the chain, which stretches down from the higher animals to man at the bottom.
Okay, so now I will discuss this part. So what are the three generalizations that he had come to? Number 1, the first group, human beings. يبقى human beings form one family or one group. But number 2, all the animals with 4 legs. This forms the other family or the other group. But what about the third? The third includes all other species, such as insects, birds, and belong to the chain of animals in which humans are at the bottom. So again, I have the first group, human beings. Number 2, the animals that move on 4 legs. Number 3, all the other species, including the reptiles, the insects, and the birds, and so on. And he believes here that the human beings come lower than the animals. Is that clear, the 3 groups? Guys, the 3 groups are clear? Any questions regarding them?
No, thank you.
Okay. Now let's proceed. Now here we will come to the first experiment. In the first experiment, he's going to compare between a human being who is here an earl. An earl is a post for a person, an earl like a lord, okay? And anaconda. And we will see the difference between them. So would you continue reading, please, my dear?
Yes, some of my experiments were quite curious. In the course of my reading, I had come across a case where many years ago some hunters on our Great Plains organized a buffalo hunt for the entertainment of an English earl. They had charming sport. They killed 72 of those great animals and ate part of one of them and left the 71 to rot. In order to determine the difference between an anaconda and an earl, if any, I caused 7 young calves to be turned into the anaconda's cage. The grateful reptile immediately crushed one of them and swallowed it, then lay back satisfied. It showed no further interest in the calves and no disposition to harm them. I tried this experiment with other anacondas, always with the same result. The fact stood proven that the difference between an earl and an anaconda is that the earl is cruel and the anaconda isn't, in that the earl wantonly destroys what he has no use for, but the anaconda doesn't. This seems to suggest that the anaconda was not descended from the earl. It also seems
here. I will discuss this part. So, what is the first experiment that is very important? The first experiment proves the cruelty of human beings. In what way? There was an earl an English earl, who enjoys killing or slaughtering the buffaloes. And here, just for entertainment. So they killed 72 buffaloes and they ate only part of one of them. And they left the rest of the other 71 buffaloes to rot. So they killed 72 buffaloes for no use. They ate only one part of one of them and they left the other to rot. And what about the animals? He bring several calves, 7 calves in the cage of anaconda, and he found that the anaconda only ate 1 calf of them. So the anaconda consumed what it needs only, no more, no less. He repeated the same experiment with other anacondas, and also all the time he found that the animal consumes only what it needs. So here he came to the conclusion that the human being or the earl is cruel, but the anaconda isn't. Thus, or so, the anaconda does not descend from the earl. So the anaconda is higher than the human being itself. Am I clear or shall I repeat it?
Clear, yeah, Miss.
Guys, other than Sarah, do you have any questions regarding this part? Because it's very important, because when I ask you, for example, to bring me one example of the cruelty of human beings, you are going to state this experiment that he compared between the earl and the anaconda. For the earl, he killed 72 buffaloes and they ate only part of one of them and they left the others to rot. But what about the anaconda? It ate only 1 calf and it didn't harm the others. So the man is cruel, but the anaconda isn't. Am I clear? Right, now let's continue. Thank you, Sarah.
Miss, a quick question.
Yes, yes.
عشان مش فاهم هو يعني ايه earl؟ اللي هو human يعني ولا؟
An earl is like a lord. Do you know what is meant by lord? A noble.
هذا واحد noble richman يعني.
Yes, a noble man. Okay. So يعني they have hunting as a kind of entertainment and sport only. And for his entertainment, he killed 72 buffaloes, but for no use. You get it, Salah?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, thank you, Sarah. Continue, Anas. Anas.
ايوه مس ايوه
Okay. What do you
كنا
think?
فينا عند يوغوزاوير صح؟
اللي هي this seemed that the anaconda does not descend from the earl. It also seemed the last.
ممكن حاجة بس قولي لي فين بالظبط عشان انا تهت واحنا بيسألوا الأسئلة.
يعني the first line of the second page. Do you see it, my dear?
اوكي ماشي. Suggests that we are heirs or descended from the anaconda. Had lost a good deal in the transition. I was aware that many men who have accumulated more millions of money.
Anas. So here he says that the earl descended from the anaconda. It means that the earl is lower than the anaconda. As he says, the man is the lowest animal. Now we will come to another part or another experiment which proves that human beings are greedy. Read this by Anas.
I was aware that many men who have accumulated more millions of money than they can never use have shown a rapid hunger for more, and have not scrupled to feed the ignorant and the helpless out of their poor serving in order to practically appease to that appetite. I furnish hundreds.
Okay, just hold on here, Jan. Okay, so here he says what? That he found that man likes to save money. When he says here who have accumulated more millions of money. Then he says that in order to get this money, they do not mind that they would deceive or fool the poor people, that they get the savings of the poor people in order to add more money for themselves. So what about the animals? Let's see. Continue, Anas.
تمام. I furnished 100 different kinds of wild and tame animals the opportunity to accumulate vast stores of food, but none of them would do it. The squirrels and bees, certain birds made accumulations, but stopped when they had gathered a winter supply, and could not be persuaded to add to it either honestly or by chicane.
Yes.
Chicane. In order to bolster up the tottering reputation, the ant pretended to store up supplies, but I was not deceived. I know the ant. These experiments convinced me that there is a difference between man and the higher animals. He is outrageous, and miserably they are not.
Okay, so here he says that I found that all the animals or the insects, the birds, and so on, they like to store food, but for the quantity they would need only for winter, for example. But they do not like to accumulate or store anything that they do not need. Even he says here, and this is of course satirical, that the ant pretended that it is accumulating food more than it needs, but no, it will not deceive me, because I know the ant, that he is quite sure that all the animals or the insects, they do not accumulate anything that they do not need. Then what is the conclusion? That the man is avaricious, or it means that he is greedy and he is miser, but the animals or the insects are not. So the second example here, it is about greed. Who is greedy? Human beings. Why? They like to save money. They like to accumulate food more than they need, even if they deceived others. As he says here, that they deceive poor people and take their savings in order to gain more money. What about the animals? They do not do that. They only accumulate food or store food what they needed only, no more, no less. The second example is clear? Any questions regarding the second example? So the first example we took about cruelty, the second example about greed. Any questions regarding them?
ممكن حضرتك بس هيدي أول إكزامبل تاني عشان ما كنتش فاهم واضح.
اللي هو الكرولتي.
اه.
We have an earl, and this earl likes to hunt. In order to satisfy himself, they killed 72 buffaloes. Okay?
اوكي مش اللي هم ايوه اللي هم قتلوهم من غير ما كانش محتاجين
but they didn't eat these buffaloes. They ate only part of one of them, and they left the others just to decay. So what about the animals? He made an experiment with anaconda, and he put in the cage of the anaconda 7 calves. And he found that the anaconda ate only one of them, and it didn't harm or kill the others. So the anaconda ate only what it needs, not like the human beings that they kill and murder more than they need. You get it, Anas?
خلاص تمام اوكي.
Fine. Any questions again from these two experiments? تمام. طيب. Shall I complete just one paragraph? Okay. Yahya? Okay, would you read this part in the course of my experiments?
حاضر. In the course of my experiments, I convinced myself that among the animals, man is the only one that harbors insults and injuries, broods over them, waits till a chance offers, and then takes revenge. The passion of revenge is unknown to the higher animals. Roosters keep harems, but it is by consent of their
Concubine.
concubines, therefore no wrong is done. Men keep harems, but it is by brute force, privileged by atrocious laws, which the other sex was allowed no hand in making. In this matter, man occupies a far lower places than a rooster.
Okay. Now
Cats
he talks, thank you, Mike. In this paragraph, he talks here about two vices. The first vice is revenge. He says that human beings only seek revenge, but the animals, they do not seek something like that, that the man plans in order to take his revenge. The animals are not. The second point, he says that man force women to be under his power. When he says here, men keep harems. Harems, when you have a group of women that they are under your power. He says that the roosters do the same, but they do not force the concubines or the other hens. But the man did that. He forced women to be under his power. So here in this paragraph, he talks about revenge. This is for man, no revenge for the animals. And the other thing, the subjection of women, because men force women to be under their power. Is that clear? Guys.
Yes.
Okay, so I will sum up what we have covered today. The first experiment that shows cruelty, it is between the earl and the anaconda. The second experiment shows the greed of human beings, that they like to accumulate more food and money than they need, while the birds and insects, they do not. The third experiment shows that human beings seek only revenge, but the animals are not. And also the fourth one, that man subject women, but the animals are not. Or even the animals, when they do something like that, it is with the satisfaction of the hens. They do not force them to do something they do not want. You get it? We will continue tomorrow, inshallah. Any questions before we are running out of time? We have less than 1 minute. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, see you
Thank you.
tomorrow, inshallah. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.